All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Energy Rebound Program informational webinar presented by the Wyoming Business Council. I'm Warren Appel. I'm Agency Services Manager here at the Business Council, and I will be your facilitator today, going to cover a few quick housekeeping reminders before I hand you over to Sarah. Attendees are invited to submit written questions using the Q&A function on the webinar toolbar. We will respond to as many of these questions as time allows, and if we can't get to your question, we'll reach out directly with an answer. You may also use the Raise My Hand feature on the webinar toolbar to ask a live question, and we'll call on you in turn. Please do not submit questions or comments using the webinar chat box, as we cannot keep track of those. I will remind all of our panelists to keep your microphone muted at all times when you're not speaking, and keep background noise to a minimum. If you need to step away or get distracted, because that never happens, am I right? Please also turn off your webcam. This is, of course, the nice neighborly thing to do, but will also ensure a pleasant experience for everyone attending today or viewing the recording later. And in case you missed it, yes, we are recording this webinar. We will make recordings available at wyomingbusiness.org and on our partner websites in the coming days. With all that checked off our list, I'm going to hand you off to Wyoming Business Council Chief Strategy Officer, Sarah Fitzgerald, to introduce our panelists and agenda this morning. Sarah?
Thank you, Warren. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us again today. We're excited to continue to answer more questions. We've had a few questions roll in over the past couple of days as the applications we've started accepting applications, and we're here to answer more questions today. On the panel, we have presenting today, we have Mark Watson with the Oil and Gas Commission. We also have Tom Kropatch with the Oil and Gas Commission. In addition to that, we have Brandy Monger, who is a representative of the Attorney General's office. We have Amy Grenfell, who is the Wyoming Business Council Chief Operating Officer, and she can answer questions about invoicing and all kinds of things like that. In addition, we have Randall Luthi. He is the Chief Energy Advisor to Governor Mark Gordon. And so we will be able to answer all your questions today and kind of get you squared away if you've got any lingering ones. With that, I'll go ahead and get us kicked off and turn it right over to Randall Luthi to just give an overview of the Energy Rebound Program.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Sarah. Once again, thank you all for joining what is now the second webinar concerning the Energy Rebound Program. Governor Gordon's Energy Rebound Program, I think, offers an economic shot in the arm for those operators who will be able to take advantage of the CARES money. And the CARES money really does bring a great opportunity, but it also brings a pretty good hurdle. And that's because of the restrictions attached to that money by Congress. This program is tailored to meet those requirements. It also follows the pattern of earlier Wyoming business relief programs, and it's similar to a program that was recently initiated by the North Dakota legislature. The governor put this program together over the last about 3 weeks, and it couldn't have happened without the help of the Wyoming oil and gas industry, particularly the Petroleum Association of Wyoming, the Wyoming Business Council, the Wyoming Attorney General's Office, and the Wyoming Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. So this gives me an opportunity to thank you and the individuals within those organizations that actually have spent the greater part of, I would say, the last 10 days, including last weekend, finalizing these rules and this process. So under the current CARES legislation guidelines, we can use CARES Act funds to pay for goods and services that are used to commence or complete drilled but uncompleted wells, recompletions, workovers, and plugging and abandonment activities, which can include surface reclamation. Now, the trigger to these projects is that they were planned but were unable to be commenced or finished due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic or the ensuing health orders. The other limiting factor is that the funds have to be expended by December 30th. So as you complete your plans and contemplate the application, keep in mind that you don't have to complete the project by the end of the year to receive these funds, but you can certainly get a good start on what you can do. And I don't think anyone understands and felt the effect of COVID-19 more than the Wyoming oil and gas industry. In the second quarter, pretty much all activity stopped. There for a period of time, for the first time in decades, we didn't have a drill working in Wyoming. So this energy rebound program is designed to assist the Wyoming economy. As you'll hear later, these projects are going to be rated on their ability to provide the greatest economic and employment opportunities to Wyoming. We know the windows of applications is short, but companies that were ready to roll last March should have most of the information in hand to complete that application. I understand we're off to a great start. We had over 50 applications were received in the first day. And once the projects are approved, payment will be made based upon invoices. Those invoices are due by January 30th, 2021, but invoices can certainly be submitted before then. So I know and I understand the process appears somewhat limited and probably faster than your usual billing cycles. But if anything, the Wyoming oil and gas industry has proven to be nimble and quick to adjust. You know, this truly is an opportunity to inject some capital into your business. So with that, again, thank you all for participating in this program. And so I'm going to kick it back to Sarah, and others will explain more detail of how the process is going to work.
Great, thank you, Randall. Yeah, as Randall said, I'll get into just a little bit more detail about the program and how the process works. Tom will walk us through how application reviews work, and then we'll be able to answer all your questions. So the first thing that you want to ask is my business eligible for this program? And your business needs to meet the requirements in basically two categories. You need to both have been established on or before any applicable COVID-19 health orders. And we tend to, those primarily happened around March 13th, 2020. And so we use that date as a simple cutoff, but there are kind of extenuating circumstances that might come into play there. You also need to have had at least one full-time employee, and that means working more than 30 hours per week as of that March 13, 2020 date. In addition to that, you need to either have, as a result of COVID-19, have been unable to do, to either complete a drilled well that the company owns and operates, or to perform a recompletion or workover of a well, or to perform the plugging and abandonment of a well that you own and operate. Or you can also have a legal obligation to plug and abandon a well, but you could not do that because of COVID-19. The key things here are, there's a number of projects that fall under this program. The key question to ask here is the reason that we didn't do this project this year, was it because of COVID-19? If it wasn't, it's not applicable. If it is, it generally applies via this requirement. The second question to ask is my project eligible? And so we just kind of went through those three categories, that your company needs to have not been able to do one of those three categories of projects in order to qualify for the program. In the same way, the individual projects for which you apply must fit within one of these three categories. So it can either be the completion of a drilled well in Wyoming that wasn't performed because of COVID-19. It can be a recompletion or a workover of a well in Wyoming that wasn't performed because of the effects of COVID-19 and the public health emergency, which also includes the economic impacts of COVID-19. Or it can be the plugging and abandonment of an idle well, including surface reclamation, that again wasn't performed because of the effects of COVID-19 and the economic impacts that came out of COVID-19. The award amount will be the less of these three things: the estimated total cost of the whole project, the estimated total amount that can be expended toward the completion of the project by December 30th, or $500,000. As Randall mentioned, the CARES Act guidance and the CARES Act restrictions that we're working under, since this is federal money, we are guided by the guidance that the federal that the CARES Act gives us, and so we do need to stick within the time frame that the CARES Act provides, and that time frame ends on December 30. And so the amount that you can spend toward the project by December 30 is really the amount that you're able to recoup from this, up to $500,000. And we'll get into this a little bit more later. But in addition to that December 30 end date, it's also important to think about the start date of the work that you wish to reimburse for. So we can't reimburse for anything that we before the date of approval of your application. So projects may have started already. They might have started and you weren't able to drill that well, you weren't able to complete that well, or recomplete, or do the workover, or plug and abandon that well because of COVID-19. Maybe work started December 1st and you get your notification on December 2nd. Well, you cannot get reimbursed for any of that work that happened on December 1st. All of the work that you are able to be reimbursed for has to happen between the date of approval and December 30. And we can get more into that if you've got questions later. So the application is currently up on wyomingbusiness.org/ERP. And you can go there and download the application. All of the information that you need to apply for this program is basic contact information, and then information about the actual projects for which you're applying. And that's just kind of basic well information, operator, API number, the well status, and then the project type, and that's one of those three types. So a completion, a recompletion, or workover, or a P&A. And then the estimated date of start, estimated date of project completion, estimated total cost of the project, and that's of the full project, not just of the work that you're doing. That total estimated cost of project is for the entire project. And then we also ask for the estimated amount to be expended on projects before December 30th. And so we want that piece that you're going to be able to spend using this money. We also ask for the estimated number of workers both in Wyoming and total. And the reason for that is because we want to make sure that we are prioritizing the projects that bring the greatest economic benefit to Wyoming. For that same reason, we also ask for additional production of oil and gas that's expected over the first year. We also ask you to sign and certify that all of the information that you're providing is truthful, and that you're complying with the guidelines of the program. In addition to that, and you'll notice there are two places to sign on the application. In addition to that, we ask you to sign and agree to the terms and conditions of the award. So this is in the case that you are approved for an award under the Energy Rebound program. The terms and conditions that are included in the contract, those are the terms and conditions that you would agree to if you are indeed approved for an award. With that, I'm just going to stop sharing here and start sharing the application. There we go. Sorry for that. So this is what the application looks like. You'll be able to, again, download this on at wyomingbusiness.org/ERP. So it's pretty basic, pretty straightforward. Just go through and fill out. This is a fillable application, so you can fill it out just by clicking and typing in your company name, your EIN number, DBA, trade number, all of this kind of basic company information. In addition to that kind of basic information and questions that we ask to verify your company's eligibility, that your company is in fact eligible for the program, we also ask for information on individual projects. And so we have this table here. So fill this out. You can fill this out again by clicking in there and typing in each cell. You'll be able to type in information for each cell that's provided there. One thing to note here is that one project equals one well. So when you're filling out this application, do not you should have one API number per row in here. You cannot have more than one API number in each one of these individual rows. That makes it really near impossible for us to verify that your project does indeed meet the eligibility requirements for the program. And so as you're filling this out, just remember one well per row. You can also, you'll have to click within each one of these individual cells to fill in each cell individually in this form. If you've got these in a spreadsheet, in an Excel spreadsheet, you can also just attach that to your application when you submit it via email, when you submit your application. And so you don't need to go through and fill out each one of these if you want to attach an Excel spreadsheet instead. But still remember that one project equals one row, and we do need the individual API numbers for each individual well on which you're doing a project. There are also some federal reporting questions that we need to ask to comply with the CARES Act. Please remember when you're filling these out that these don't have any bearing on whether you'll be awarded, what prioritization you'll have, or anything like that. And so just please fill these out to the best of your ability. There's a question in here that some people don't really know how to answer sometimes, which is, do you believe that you're eligible for any other COVID-19 related federal funds? And so if you don't know the answer to that question, you can go ahead and click I don't know here. You'll certify that everything is true. You'll certify to all of these that all of these certifications and all of the information that you've provided are true. And those include things like you've fully complied with all of the state and public health orders, things like that. And then in addition, we need you to sign again down at the very bottom of this form to the terms and conditions that you would agree to if you were to be awarded a stipend under this program. And so this language is similar to what you would typically see in a grant agreement or in a contract. So please let your attorneys take a look at that and make sure you know what you're signing before you go ahead and sign there. Once you sign there, save the document and attach it in an attachment and send it to wbc.erp@wyo.gov. That's wbc.erp@wyo.gov. And then with that, I will see if I can switch my screen a little bit faster this time, back to the presentation. All right, there we go. Again, you can download that application at wyomingbusiness.org/ERP. Fill it out, sign it, and once you've done that, email it to wbc.erp@wyo.gov. We are actively accepting applications right now. We opened at 10 a.m. yesterday, and we will continue to accept applications through Monday at 10 a.m. the 23rd. We know this is a short time frame, but we do want to make sure that we can get these out to everybody as fast as possible, and so that you all can get to work on these projects before that deadline of December 30. With that, I will turn it right over to Tom Kropatch to walk us through more of the application process and how that all gets done.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. As you can see on this slide, this is kind of a illustration of the process that we're utilizing for application review. As Sarah mentioned, that process begins when you submit your application via email to the Business Council and to the website that she mentioned. Once we receive those, the applications get reviewed by a team of state agencies, which includes the Oil and Gas Commission. And what we're doing is really completing what you see there, the eligibility checks, project data verification, and that kind of thing. So that's the first kind of part of our process. And to help us with that, when Sarah shared the application, and you saw kind of all that data that's required, it's really beneficial for us if you can complete that information with as complete as possible. So try not to leave anything blank in there. If you have that information, please supply it, especially company information, so we can verify the company is eligible, and then the project data, so that we have the ability to look up the information, look up the API number, confirm the well data. That kind of information is beneficial. Otherwise, it slows us down in our process, having to try to pull that information up. So when you're doing that, again, make sure you're as complete as possible with the data. And before you submit it, it would be beneficial if you could review that one final time, just to make sure everything's in the right spot, that you've got everything clear, no typos, dates are correct, all that kind of information. It'll slow us down on our review if we have some of those issues that we have to try to clarify. So we'd appreciate just a few extra minutes of your diligence to make sure it's a complete application. One thing that after all of the data is reviewed, and maybe one more thing there before I move on, and just to reiterate what Sarah mentioned, on table 3, or on the table on page 3, which lists your projects of the page 3 of the application, please make sure that it's one well per line or per row in that application, because each well essentially is a project. So if you're gonna, if you're recompleting 5 wells, those would be 5 separate projects in your application from your company. And so please make sure you separate each of those wells, essentially each of those projects on each row, so that we can review those appropriately. Once everything is reviewed, then using the criteria mentioned, we will prioritize the projects. And so it's important to note there on the final funding decisions will be made by the Wyoming Business Council, and approval or denial determination from the Business Council is final. You might have some questions on what exactly could be done. Sarah mentioned, the work dates being between the date of your approval of your application and then December 30th, and mentioned that you don't have to have all of the project complete, but what you can invoice is between those dates. So examples of that could be, if you're going to do a completion of a duct, of a drilled but uncompleted well, then maybe you can purchase the water and haul the water to the location that you'll need, or other materials that you'll need for that hydraulic fracturing job, and you can get that done before December 30th. Or if you're doing engineering work to design that work, that project, then you can track your hours, and those hours completed between those dates could then be eligible. So or any other time and materials charged by a contractor or service provider within those dates to prepare for your project or work on your project. So those are examples of the work that might be eligible within your projects. I think that's everything I wanted to cover, except I guess that last box there at the end of the process Sarah mentioned as when you sign that, you're certifying and agreeing to the conditions within the application. Just wanted to make sure everyone's aware that part of the terms of the application, the Business Council may conduct audits and contract for audits of the eligible businesses receiving awards in this program, mainly to ensure that awards are expended in compliance with state and federal law. So by accepting an award and by signing that application, you would agree to assist and provide information requested by the auditors if such an audit is completed. And I think I've covered everything, Sarah, that I needed to there. So I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thanks, Tom. Yeah, so with that, we'll just cover some prioritization criteria. As Tom mentioned, and Randall talked about it a little bit as well, really the purpose of this program is to help Wyoming workers get back to work and to help Wyoming's economy recover from COVID-19. And so for that reason, these are the prioritization criteria that we're using to prioritize funding for these stipends. The main prioritization criteria is to projects that provide the greatest economic and employment benefit to Wyoming. Other factors include, but aren't limited to, the start date and completion date of the project, completeness of the application and accuracy of the application. Because of the volume of applications, it's really tough for us to work with you to kind of correct any typos and things like that. And so it's hard for us to know, to kind of read between any lines here. So that accuracy of the application is really important as well. The estimated amount of increased production of oil and gas, of course, and then the ability to plug and abandon in a timely manner. If two projects are exactly the same according to those criteria, then kind of the tiebreaker will be the date of application. And so that's why we received a whole bunch at 10 o'clock on the dot and 10:01 and 10:02 yesterday morning. But that will only come into play in those cases where there's where two projects are pretty similar. So it's really more important to make sure that your application is accurate and reflects accurately what the economic benefit to Wyoming will be via the number of workers that you're going to use to complete the project, both inside Wyoming and out of state, and the production. So those things are the very most important things to get right in your application. And do remember that we ask for estimates. We also ask for you to certify that that those are true. And so please do your best to estimate those to the best of your ability. With that, we will start taking questions and answers. I'm going to ask Warren to help us coordinate this. He's just a total pro at this by now. So I will turn it over to him to kind of go through some ground rules and then to help us do a Q&A session.
Perfect. Thanks, Sarah. Any attendees wishing to ask questions of our panelists today can do so one of two ways. You can click the Raise My Hand feature on your webinar toolbar. We will call on you in turn and you can ask your question live, or you can submit those in writing at any time using the question and answer toolbar. If we're unable to get to the question and answers today, we will reach out to you with an answer directly. We're going to take the first answer from the Q&A box, comes from Jennifer. Is this program only for oil and gas drilling companies, or would oil field consultants who own their own business working on a rig to drill a well count, or other companies providing services to the drilling company?
Excellent question, Jennifer. The answer to your question is yes. This program is for operators and owners of oil and gas wells in Wyoming. But we know that, that those are the folks who contract with service companies to do the work on Wyoming rigs. And so this is really to get the work going again and to make sure that we help out service providers via that mechanism.
Perfect. And another one from Jennifer. If the company is located in Wyoming but drilling in another state such as North Dakota, would those wells count, or does the well need to be located in Wyoming?
Yes, the well does need to be located within Wyoming's borders.
Okay. A question from John. We submitted an application yesterday, but apparently misunderstood the deadline for project expenditures, thus scheduled some projects for January. If we believe we could execute these projects in December, may we now amend our application?
Yeah, great question, John. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and send an email to wbc.erp@wyo.gov with that question. I need to check with Tom and his team to see how we want to handle those types of situations. So go ahead and send an email to that email address and we'll get back to you.
All right. Another one from Richard. How and when will an applicant be notified of their project being approved?
Excellent question. You'll be notified via email, and that will be after the close date of November 23rd. We're going to try to do our best to get all applicants notified before Thanksgiving, but it really just depends on the volume of applications that we get. But we are going to try our very best to get you an email before then.
Lily asks, can you please define a workover?
I think I'm going to defer to Tom for this one, or Mark, perhaps.
Thanks, Sarah. You know, a workover could be, I guess, many different things, but for example, maybe you need to change out a pump, or maybe you need to do some well clean out, perf cleanups, things like that. It could be anything that would help improve the production in your well, or get the well back online if it's been shut in or TA'd for some reason, waiting on that work to get done so that you could get it back in production.
Thank you, Tom. This last question comes from Chuck. Do the contractors have to be Wyoming based?
Excellent question, Chuck. You don't have to, your contractors do not have to be Wyoming based in order for you to be eligible for the program. However, and this is a big however, we are prioritizing projects based on their economic benefit to Wyoming. And one of the questions that we ask to understand what that economic benefit to Wyoming is the number of Wyoming workers that your project will employ. And so while we don't have that as in kind of an on-off switch for eligibility, that is a really, really important consideration in terms of whether your project will indeed get funded or not.
Okay, and a question from Bryce. How long does a well have to be a duck to qualify as a duck?
We don't have any qualifications on how long it's been sitting uncompleted. The key question to answer here is, did you not complete it because of COVID-19 and the related economic impacts of COVID-19?
Okay, if we have any other questions, attendees, oh, there we've got one. Please make sure you send those in via the Q&A toolbar or use the raise my hand feature and we can call on you and ask those live. This question, Sarah, comes from Richard. If a project is approved for reimbursement under ERP, but the operator is unable to complete the work due to weather or other circumstances prior to December 30th, what happens to the funds?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And that's one of the, you guys are folks in the oil and gas industry are more familiar with uncertainty and risk than I think anybody else. And that's one of the considerations that we knew was something to consider when we were designing the program as well. We can't control the weather, we can't control those things, and neither can you. However, we do have that December 30th deadline. And so the key thing to think about here is that if you can't get anything done, if you can't get your work done, if you can't get your expenses out the door by December 30th, then we cannot reimburse you for that.
Okay, and if we have any other questions, please send those in now. If not, Sarah, you might just get off easy today.
All righty. I want to make sure that I thank all of our operators and all of the service companies and all of the folks who are working hard out in the oil and gas fields in Wyoming. It's been a very smooth application process so far, and we're still kind of getting into exactly how many projects we have. Randall mentioned that we have over 50 applications. We have 58 as of this morning. And we're Tom and his team are really getting in there and determining how many projects those applications imply. And so I want to thank you all for making sure that you're educated on the program and for applying and for getting the work done. With that, I'll say goodbye and thanks to all our partners as well.